Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy. That right there is Tom Cruise. The background around him is not a green screen, it's all real. And he's about to ride his bike off a real cliff. All of this is to achieve one stunt for Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. And for the past 27 years, Tom Cruise has been performing some of the most death-defying stunts ever put on film.
I could do my own stunts, you know, and have a little fun with that stuff.
The Mission Impossible film series is one of the greatest of all time, and with each new entry, the movies keep evolving, and the stunts get more extraordinary. The franchise sort of became Tom Cruise's billion-dollar bucket list as he finds new and elaborate ways to kill himself. But in the heart of all this action, there's a powerful story of an actor and a character who dares to do the impossible. So let's explore how Mission Impossible endured the test of time and why the series remains one of the most relevant and important franchises ever made.
Hey person, what's the deal with this Tom Cruise guy? Is he nuts?
Well, buddy, I guess that depends on how you look at sanity, but certainly it takes a special individual to hang off an Airbus A400M, climb the tallest building in the world, and perform a 25,000 feet halo jump, all for my entertainment.
Are you not entertained?
The stunts aren't the only reason why these films are great, but they're certainly what generates the hype. And what makes it so special is that Tom Cruise performs most of the stunts himself, and they're usually done with limited CGI. So if Ethan Hunt flies a helicopter in the movie, you can bet it's Tom Cruise sitting in the cockpit and flying that chopper for real. Now, of course, Tom Cruise isn't the only actor who performs his own stunts. There are many others who have been doing this for years. Jackie Chan walked so Tom Cruise could run. And run he did. He's been running since 1996. But no one does it like Tom Cruise. Because, you see, it's not simply about the actor doing his own stunts. It's about immersing the audience in these incredible action sequences. So when Cruise rides a bike against traffic in the streets of Paris, we see the action in its full glory. This keeps the audience as close as possible to the action. We feel it. And that is the magic of this series. For the past 27 years, there were 6 Mission Impossible movies, and they keep evolving and somehow getting better every time. The core of the Mission Impossible movies revolves around Ethan Hunt and a team of IMF agents who accomplish impossible missions and save the world.
Ooh, what's IMF?
It stands for Impossible Mission Force.
The IMF is Halloween, Alan. A bunch of grown men in rubber masks playing trick-or-treat.
Now, the first Mission Impossible came out in 1996 and was directed by Brian De Palma. The movie is very loosely based on the 80s Mission Impossible show, which is by itself a sequel to the 60s series. The first film is a psychological spy thriller. There are a lot of twists, backstabbing, and intense paranoia. The first movie was mostly grounded in reality. Well, as grounded as you can be with the iconic masks and the super advanced tech and exploding gum.
Hasta lasagna, don't get any on you.
Anyways, the gist of the plot is this. A few months after Ethan Hunt joins the IMF, his whole team is betrayed, and most of them are killed during a mission in Prague. The traitor is Jim Phelps, the team leader and Ethan's mentor. Ethan is framed as the traitor and disavowed. This whole concept of Hunt being disavowed and forced to go rogue is kind of the theme of the entire series. It happens like in every one of these movies. After going rogue, Ethan assembles a team of other disavowed agents to break into the CIA headquarters to steal a list of CIA agents. One of those agents is Luther Stickle, who becomes one of Ethan's best buds, and he sticks around for future films. Despite the smaller scope of this movie, there are 3 very impressive stunts. The first is one of the most iconic sequences in cinema history, the Langley vault heist. 27 years later, the image of Tom Cruise dangling from the ceiling, hacking the CIA while trying to avoid triggering an alarm, there are no words to describe the intensity of that scene. Cruise had to hang from a real cable. He performed all the acrobatic moves and spins himself, like a ballerina. Cruise actually put British pound coins in his shoes to keep his balance. The stunt where Ethan is dropped and stops right before hitting the ground was all done for real. This iconic facial expression right here transcends acting. This sequence set the tone for the rest of the series, and the reason why these impossible missions are so perfect is because of the suspense. The room has motion and sound sensors. There's a time limit to complete the mission. The entire deck is stacked against Ethan. The immersion of the intensity of this scene is so palpable. The climax on the train is a bit less impressive compared to all the other stunts though in this series, but it's still a great action scene. Back in 1996, this sequence was impossible to film on a real train due to safety and budget constraints, so it was shot on a blue screen stage. Cruise redeemed himself 27 years later by doing an action sequence on a real moving train for Dead Reckoning Part 1. To simulate the real face distortion and the immersion, production used seriously powerful fans that hit him with winds that went up to 140 miles per hour. So even when Cruise is forced to rely on CGI, he still wants to make the stunt as real as possible. But this was not the most dangerous stunt of the movie. There was another one that almost killed the actor. So early in the film, there's a meeting in a restaurant filled with 3 giant fish tanks and 1 giant lobster tank. The amount of water in all the tanks was 16 tons.
That's 32,000 pounds.
Yes, it is. Hunt blows up the tanks and then makes a run for it. The stunt was almost deadly. Once the tanks blew, if Cruise didn't move on time, the sheer amount and weight of 16 tons of water would have hit him and crushed him. So this is Tom Cruise literally running for his life. Tom Cruise is a madman.
He's a madman! A madman!
Mission Impossible 2 came out in 2000, and it was a complete tonal shift from the first film. The movie was directed by John Woo, and his signature style is all over this movie. Unfortunately, the stylized action didn't really work for Mission Impossible's tone. The spy thriller direction of the first movie was spin kicked straight out the window. The sequel transitioned this series into the action genre. There's also the evolution in the stakes that Ethan Hunt faces. In the sequel, he had to stop a rogue IMF agent from unleashing a global outbreak with a bioweapon, and subsequent sequels kept the theme of Ethan stopping world-ending catastrophes. Now, the second movie has a lot of stunts, but let's talk about the 3 big ones. The movie opens with Tom Cruise rock climbing the Dead Horse Point State Park. And how do they do that? For real, of course.
I've never had a problem with heights. As a kid, anytime I get to the edge, I want to jump off. I don't know what it is. It's subconscious. I don't want to kill myself. I want to fly.
Tom Cruise did the stunt himself. There was only a thin safety cable that kept him from plummeting to his death.
Safety cable? What a cheater.
Okay, but when we say for real, let's remember this is still a movie. The point of these risky stunts isn't to put the actors in life-threatening situations, it's about delivering immersive experiences. And it's still just one cable with no safety net. Cruise jumped from one rock to another, and those are really hard rocks. In fact, Cruise tore his shoulder while filming this scene. Now, while the stunt is very impressive and shows the extreme risk that Tom Cruise is willing to take to make everything feel real, the scene itself didn't feel quite right.
What are you talking about?
Many stunts in the sequel are all about the spectacle. Woo brought his unique style and wanted to make Ethan Hunt look like the biggest badass that ever lived. So that's why he climbs a mountain just to show what a cool dude he is. But the thing that makes Mission Impossible so intense is the urgency of the action. When Ethan Hunt needs to accomplish impossible missions, they always get harder because fate always tests him. Something always goes wrong. There's always a ticking clock. Ethan isn't superhuman, so he struggles every single step of the way. Whenever Ethan fails, he must adapt and through sheer force of will alone, achieve the impossible. All of this adds to the stress levels of each mission. Also, we never get the sense that Ethan wants to do any of these dangerous things.
I'm telling you, we can get to it from outside.
We?
I'm on the computer.
He's always reluctant at first, and even when doing the missions, he's never having fun. And that's what makes Ethan relatable to us. But in this scene, there's zero tension. This entire stunt would have hit so much harder if it was part of the mission later in the movie, like Ethan having to climb a mountain because there's something he needs at the top to complete his mission. Like the CIA infiltration in the first film, the sequel has another impossible mission. This time, Hunt needs to infiltrate the biosite building and destroy the Chimera virus. Ethan jumps off a helicopter and dives through vents on the roof. Once again, the timing must be perfect to accomplish the mission. The stunt was filmed on a giant green screen stage, but Cruise performed the dive from the ceiling himself.
That's fun.
The final stunt is one of the most needless risks that Cruise took in his career. In the final fight, Ethan is on the ground and the main villain, Sean Ambrose, jumps up to stab Ethan in the face. Ethan stops the knife right in front of his eye. It's an amazing moment. And you want to hear something crazy?
It was all CGI.
Oh, buddy, no, not even close. It was a real freaking knife.
No way, how even?
The real knife was attached to a strong cable which stopped the knife right in front of Tom Cruise's eyeball. So, Doug Ray Scott, who played the villain, used his full body weight to drive the knife down toward Cruise's eye. Right before the knife goes too far, the cable stopped it, with the real blade hovering right in front of his eyeball.
That's not a knife. That's a knife.
And I think this was needlessly dangerous, but I guess they don't call him Tom Cruise for nothing. After the insanity of Mission Impossible 2, the third film took the series back to its roots, while also reinventing it in a new and better direction. The movie was directed by J.J. Abrams, and he set the tone for the future of the franchise. J.J. found a great way to meld the spy thriller themes with the larger scope action sequences, and this combination kept being refined in future installments. The plot in the third film is Ethan stopping an arms dealer from getting the rabbit's foot.
What, like an actual rabbit's foot?
No, it's a code name for some mysterious bioweapon thingy.
Do you have a wife, girlfriend? Because you know what I'm gonna do next? I'm gonna find her and I'm gonna hurt her. And then I'm gonna kill you right in front of her.
The movie also introduced Simon Pegg as Benji, who becomes sort of like Ethan Hunt's sidekick in all the later movies. Ethan's personal life is also explored. He gets married to Julia Meade, and by the end of the film, he retires from the IMF, but he didn't stay out for too long. Mission Impossible 3 is a really solid movie, but it didn't have too many iconic stunts. We did get the Tom Cruise runs meme, though. The infiltration mission in MI3 is Ethan breaking into a building in Shanghai to retrieve the rabbit's foot. Hunt needed to jump from the rooftop of one skyscraper and zipline to another. There's even an homage to Jackie Chan's building slide from Who Am I? Now, while the stunt was filmed on a green screen stage, production still built a giant roof so Cruise could make the running jump for real. And he did the stunt over and over again till getting it perfect. The scene is good, however, it doesn't match the highs of the pantheon of iconic stunts in this series. The other big stunt of the movie was the great shot of a drone strike that slams Ethan into a parked car. To simulate the shockwave of the drone strike, Tom Cruise ran full speed and then got yanked by wires and slammed into the car. I should also mention one stunt that didn't go quite so well. During the Vatican infiltration, Hunt makes his iconic drop from a real high place. In the film, Hunt stops right above the ground perfectly, but in one of those takes, Cruise actually hit the ground, and apparently it was not a smooth hit.
I couldn't tell how hard he hit, truly an inch away, from a huge disaster. Tom, of course, just started laughing because he thought it was the greatest thing ever.
After drastic tone changes and inconsistent directions of previous movies, Mission Impossible finally found its footing with Ghost Protocol. Brad Bird, who you might know as the director of The Incredibles, stepped in as the director for this fourth installment. Bird refined the tone and style that were reinvented by JJ in MI3. This was the biggest evolution of the series, and it also reinvented the audience's perspective on these movies. The audience took these movies seriously, and people tuned in to see Tom Cruise doing crazy stunts. This time, the entire IMF is disavowed after Ethan is framed for the Kremlin bombing. Ethan assembles a team of misfits to stop Kurt Hendricks from starting a nuclear war. Anyways, let's talk about the incredible infiltration sequence in Ghost Protocol, which is one of the biggest stunts in movie history. For the infiltration mission in Ghost Protocol, Ethan had to climb the Burj Khalifa, and that is the tallest building in the world.
Fear of heights is illogical. Fear of falling, on the other hand, is prudent and evolutionary.
And he had to break into a server room from the outside. Cruise climbed the huge skyscraper. He was jumping around, swinging, running across it, and even pretended to fall, all of it with only a few safety cables.
Couldn't they just do that with green screens?
Probably, but it would have actually been way more expensive to do it with VFX. And of course, it wouldn't be the same if it wasn't all done on camera.
Perfection.
This was one of the most incredible stunts ever put on film. Even now when I watch it, I'm amazed that it exists. This stunt alone got so many people to watch the movie. Ghost Protocol earned close to $700 million at the box office. And since then, the Mission Impossible films became must-watch events. Beyond the fact that this stunt is so amazing, the tension of the scene is so perfectly executed. Ethan needs to use these gloves that allow him to scale the building like Spider-Man, but he must do it all in under 26 minutes, so time is running out. And to add to the tension, there's a sandstorm on the way. And then one of his gloves stops working and Ethan almost drops to his death.
Blue is glue. And when it's red, dead.
Throughout this scene, Ethan must always face impossible odds, so he must constantly problem solve everything and find a way to accomplish the mission before that countdown hits 0.
Mission accomplished!
And this brings us to Rogue Nation. The 5th film improved on every possible aspect of the series thanks to the strong foundation of Ghost Protocol. Rogue Nation was written and directed by Christopher McQuarrie, and he returned as the director for all the next movies in the franchise. This time, Ethan goes after the Syndicate, an organization made up of rogue agents. Their leader is Solomon Lane, and he is like an evil mirror image of Hunt. Rogue Nation introduced the world to Rebecca Ferguson, and this was her first major movie. She plays Ilsa Faust. She's Ethan's equal, and their dynamic adds a new, fresh dimension to the series. The movie brings back most of the team from Ghost Protocol, and we get the new IMF team. After climbing the tallest building in the world, Cruise had to take things to the next level. So Cruise hung off an Airbus A400M while it took off.
Look, up in the sky, it's a bird.
It's a plane!
It's Tom Cruise, dressed casual.
This was a huge stunt, and Cruise did it all for real. He was attached by a cable to the side of the plane as it took off. And to make things harder, they only had 48 hours to film this sequence. Cruise performed the stunt 8 times, with the plane going 115 miles an hour, climbing to over 1,000 feet. Despite all the safety precautions, this stunt was seriously dangerous because once the plane takes off, Cruise is on his own. With the plane going 115 miles an hour, any bird strike or even a small debris or stone would be like getting hit by a bullet. There was also the risk of jet exhaust and fumes that could be very dangerous, and Cruise did the stunt basically blind since he had special contact lenses that protected his eyes but also made it so he could not see anything. Not to mention that if the safety cable gets a little loose, that means R.I.P. Tom Cruise.
Bye, pinball!
So it's a testament to Cruise's ability to perform these stunts and the amazing team that keeps him from dying. Which brings us to the other big stunt of the film. The big mission in Rogue Nation is Ethan infiltrating an underground facility that's submerged underwater. Ethan must get inside and accomplish the mission without an oxygen tank, so Ethan had to hold his breath for more than 3 minutes, which meant that Tom Cruise had to do the same thing in real life. I mean, obviously, why would anybody do this any other way? The stunt was filmed in a real underwater set. Production had to use some CGI for the high-tech facility, but they still used practical sets to achieve realism. And Cruise decided that to make this sequence work, they had to film it while he was underwater, holding his breath for 3 minutes. Cruise wanted this scene to be a 3-minute long take, meaning that there would be no cuts. There are still edits in the actual movie though. To prove that he can do it, Cruise held his breath underwater for 6 straight minutes.
Tell the people how long, this is incredible, how long could you hold your breath for underwater?
6.5 minutes.
Ferguson also did some of her own stunts herself. The sequence is great, and the intensity is there for sure. I remember watching it for the first time, and I kind of tried to hold my breath just because I was so into the scene. However, I'm not sure if all the hard work that went into making this stunt translates into the actual scene.
What are you talking about?
And you can notice it. When the camera's close to Hunt, it's mostly practical effects with minimal CGI. We see Tom Cruise struggling with the physical exertion underwater, and we feel his air running out. That's so intense. But once the scene switches to wide shots, the CGI becomes very noticeable, and Hunt's movements feel very animated. That makes it all look, kind of fake.
Everyone's a critic.
Not that I'm anti-CGI or anything like that. The scene is mad impressive, but when you have an awesome opening scene where Cruise hangs off a real plane, this stunt doesn't really live up to its full potential. Especially because after this scene, we get an incredible car chase scene which was filmed for real. And then Cruise does some terrifying bike stunts without wearing a helmet. Not that there's anything wrong with CGI. VFX are getting a very bad rap right now, but this isn't about that. CGI is a tool like any other. Their quality depends on the filmmakers and the studios. The audience has big expectations from these movies, so Cruise and his team have to deliver on these incredible stunts done for real. What is this, a Marvel movie?
Surprised to see me?
To make up for it, Tom Cruise decided to jump off a plane for Mission Impossible Fallout, and then to fly a helicopter by himself. The story this time had Ethan and his team stopping the Apostles. They're a remnant of Solomon Lane's syndicate from the previous movie. The mission is to retrieve 3 plutonium cores before the villains use them as nukes. The IMF team from the previous movie returns, minus Jeremy Renner.
Why? What happened to him?
He couldn't be in the movie because of Avengers Endgame. Henry Cavill plays August Walker, the second villain of the movie, with his incredible mustache that ruined Justice League. And of course, that iconic arm reload in the bathroom fight. Even before we get to the action, I have to praise the film for its beautiful cinematography. This might be the best looking film in the series. It also has an incredible score. Both things are another big step up for the series. Now, the 6th film didn't waste any time. Barely 20 minutes into the movie and Tom Cruise is already jumping from a plane. And then, from this point forward, the movie doesn't stop. It's one amazing action sequence after the other. So obviously, the big stunt was the Halo jump sequence. Halo stands for High Altitude Military Parachuting. Achieving this stunt was an impossible mission for the crew. They only had a 3-minute window each day to get this shot. At such an altitude, there was a real danger of hypoxia, so everybody had to wear an oxygen mask to stay alive. Tom Cruise performed more than 100 jumps from a Boeing C-17, traveling at over 160 miles an hour, with each jump done from around 25,000 feet.
You're flying! This isn't flying, this is falling with style.
And keep in mind that it's not just Tom Cruise who's jumping from the plane. The reason why the camera is so up close to his face is because it's being held by a camera operator who is also flying through the air. Cruise had to position himself 3 feet in front of the camera while falling over 2,000 miles an hour, diving and free fall, performing stunts midair while you're trying to get the most amazing shot in film history. What makes it even better is the fact that the sequence is shot in real time. From this moment right here, it's a 2.5 long take, meaning there are no cuts. 2.5 minutes straight might not sound too impressive considering that Extraction 2 just did a 20-minute sequence with no cuts. But take into account that this long take was shot while Cruise and the camera operator were in the freaking sky.
So what about the storm? That looks fake.
No, okay, so that's CGI. The stunt was filmed over the Abu Dhabi desert, so the VFX team had to create the storm to hide the real ground and make it look like the scene takes place over Paris. And I don't think the CGI diminishes the scene because it looks really good. But this is only the first big stunt in the film. Fallout also included a mad chase scene in Paris where Cruise rides a bike through traffic, and we get long shots of the action, which makes this chase scene so different. But all of these real stunts came with a cost. Tom Cruise had a serious injury while filming the foot chase scene in London. He needed to jump from one rooftop to another.
What are you waiting for? I'm jumping out a window!
He performed the jump, but accidentally landed his foot on the side of the building. This was a bad landing and Cruise broke his ankle.
And now watch that. Watch this.
But because it's Tom Cruise, he finished the stunt with a broken ankle. The climax had a complicated and epic helicopter stunt. The stakes for this scene are that Walker has a detonator for a nuke and he's escaping on a helicopter. To catch him, Hunt must climb a rope to get to another helicopter while it's taking off. And that's Cruise climbing a rope attached to a moving helicopter. Cruise had a safety rope, but he had to pull himself on his own while fighting extreme cold and winds. Just as Hunt gets to the chopper, his leg slips and he plummets down below, smashing into the payload. So, like all the best Mission Impossible stunts, the universe is against Hunt at every turn. The freefall stunt was real, and while it was a controlled drop, Cruise apparently hit the payload hard.
I actually thought he fell.
There was an audible gasp from the crowd.
We heard on the radio, I think we just lost Tom.
Cruise had to do the stunt about 5 times before they got the shot. And then he had to hang off the cargo while the helicopter keeps flying with speed. Eventually, Hunt gets to the top and Cruise hangs off the side of the chopper. After that, Hunt takes control of the helicopter and chases Walker. Cruise flew the helicopter himself. And he wasn't cruising in some kind of safe airport. He flew that thing around New Zealand's real mountains and very narrow terrains, through mists and snow, and did all kinds of insane aerial stunts. To make this sequence really stand out, the crew loaded the chopper with cameras. This way they could get shots that the audience had never seen before, all while doing an aerial flight with another helicopter. Henry Cavill joined Cruise in a suicide pact, so he was inside the other chopper pretending to fire a machine gun.
Yeah, but he's Superman, so that's fine.
Right, plus he could use that mustache of his like a parachute. And if all this is not insane enough, the climactic fight took place on a steep cliff called the Pulpit Rock in Norway. Both Cruise and Cavill performed the fight scene while being dangerously close to the edge. And then they went over the side of the cliff, and for the final stunt, they had to hang over the side, and eventually Cruise climbed this cliff for real. And you know what's crazy? Remember how Cruise broke his ankle? Well, he filmed this fight scene only 6 weeks after that injury, so his ankle was still broken. And this is the redemption for that disappointing mountain climb from Mission Impossible 2. This time, the scene had all the stakes because Hunt had to get to the top against all odds and disable the detonator to deactivate the nukes. And that is how you end a Mission Impossible movie. And if you're about to watch Dead Reckoning Part 1, then you might already know that the 7th Mission Impossible movie has even more mad stunts, like Tom Cruise riding a bike from a mountain. I wonder if all this is just prep work for when Cruise finally goes to space and leaps from the International Space Station all the way to the moon.
Yeah, is it true you're going to be in space next?
We're working on that. I'm working on that, definitely.
So that brings me to a very important question. Are these movies special only because of the insane stunts? Well, these movies are sold for the real practical stunts, and this is one of the main reasons the audience goes to see them, but they're also fun films that many people enjoy in an oversaturated industry. These films feel special. This is why Top Gun Maverick made over $1 billion last year and why Mission Impossible Fallout made close to $800 million. And so many people watched it because it was a special cinematic event. In an era where so many franchises take their audiences for granted by focusing on quantity over quality, bombarding the audience with forgettable and underwhelming CGI-filled movies, it takes something really special for people to leave the confines of their homes and go sit in a movie theater for 2 hours. And this is why Mission Impossible movies are so important. We need must-watch cinematic events that remind people why we love going to the movies.
We'll see the movies!
And Tom Cruise will likely go down in history as the last action hero of our time. So, what is your favorite Mission Impossible stunt so far, and what crazy stunts do you think Tom Cruise will do in the future? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe and smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.